What up, y'all? It's your man, Abuamerican. So, guys have been asking me to do like a video on putting together a mining rig. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting together my Navi 3000 series mining rig. And I'll take you guys through it step by step. Now, we do not have all the parts here. But this will allow me to do this video in stages, because a long, unbroken video is going to be quite difficult to do. So our primary parts that we need are the motherboard, CPU, memory, power cable, power supply. And that's what we have here right now. What we are missing are a few things, and there are a few problems here. This board, now, this mining rig case right here is an 8-card mining rig. This is, I don't know how this happened. I ended up with a 6-card, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 card rig. So I ended up getting a PCIe switch, which will allow you to turn 1 slot into 4 more. I don't need 4 more. I actually only need 2 more slots, but, since they don't make 2-card switches, it is what it is. So what we want to do first before we start anything else is you want to make sure that you have the proper CPU. Now, for this particular motherboard, because I have the 8-card version of this, the BioStar B250 BTC Plus, I'm hoping this works with it. There are websites for every motherboard manufacturer. So BioStar has a website, MSI has the website, and they will tell you the compatibility of your motherboard with your processor. And for your processor, just get the cheapest processor possible that is compatible with your board. You don't need an expensive processor. This thing was like 30 euros, man. I got the cheapest one. I don't care how slow it is, how fast it is. It's not doing any work. The GPU is doing all the work. This thing just kind of holds it all together, and it doesn't really need to be that strong. So I just got the cheapest one I could find, which is the G4560, and I ordered this out of China. I ordered this out of China without knowing the compatibility, because this is the same board as my other board. And, well, I thought it was the same board, and so the compatibility should be the same. Actually, let's go ahead and look on the BioStar website and see if it is compatible or not. Alright, so here we are on the BioStar website. And as you can see right here, it's the 4560T. I have the 4560. I do believe that this should be compatible enough for, 4560T. I don't know if that's the same or not, to be honest. 2.9 gigahertz. Let's check this one out. Let's see. 3.5 gigahertz. There it is right there below it. The 4560. So, yeah, we see that this is compatible. And you can just go to the BioStar website. It'll have a picture of the board, on there and everything. And then you've got your little links down here, overview, specifications, and then you go to the CPU support. Every manufacturer has this, and then you can just scroll down and you can check and see which processor is compatible with your board or not. As you can see, they're all the LGA 1151 socket, or whatever you call it, So just make sure you check that out before. Yeah, it's the socket 1151 socket. Just make sure you check that out. You don't need any super expensive one. I literally went from the bottom to the top of the list. Yes, I did this, and I just found the cheapest one, and this one happened to be the cheapest one that you can get. So yeah, guys. Anywho, so that's the primary things you need. Your memory. Most memory is DDR4. Make sure you get DDR4. You do have 2 sockets. You don't have to. I tend to run over Hive OS just because Hive OS is more stable, and so you don't need heavy memory on this. This is 8 gigabytes. Normally I buy like 8, and then I will run 120 gigabyte memory on here. This is what I'm lacking. I'm missing the hard drive, but that's on order from Amazon, so it should be here soon, inshallah. And yeah, I think that is in terms of the specifications, stuff you need. Now with the battery here, most motherboards, if you buy them new, I bought this motherboard used, they come with a battery. And as you can see, this is a CR 2025. Normally they take a 32. The 32 is just slightly thicker. and it has, of course, more power, storage capacity, but it doesn't make a difference. This just won't last as long, but for a temporary purpose of just getting this board running, it'll do just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install all of this stuff, and it's going to be hard to do one-handed. So let me see if I can get my handy assistant here to help me out. I'll just take that. So the reason why I'm doing this on here is because you want to have a lot of the mining frames, they only hold on the pins here, and so if you put pressure on the board, you could actually crack the board. So that's why I've got the fuzzy down here, and so I can put pressure on the board because it does take some pressure to apply this stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the processor, because the processor tends to be the most complicated and difficult to put on. You have to pay attention. And it's not that it's the most complicated or difficult. It's just if you put this on first and you try and put your memory in or something else, it could be in the way. So that's what I mean by complicated. Your processor will come with a fan. I'm not keeping this fan in here. I will get a different fan, but this is one I have. This is what I'm going to use. This stuff right here, this is actually like a paste. Don't touch it. It'll smear. It's really nasty. And no, it's not really nasty. It's just you don't want to get it on yourself. And it's for heat transfer. So it's a special heat paste. I have my own here. I have some really high quality stuff, but like I said, I'm going to be changing this fan out. So I'm just going to use this cheap stuff. And then when my proper fan shows up, I will use the good stuff. Oh, wait. We might want to take the processor out of here. The processor will be in here. Now the processor has to go inside of the board a specific way. If I can get it outside of the dang box. There it is right there. You press that. And then what you want to do is this thing right here. Just press this down and move it back. And then you see this little bolt here. That's going to slide outside the bolt and it's going to slip open. This is just protection that they put on there. Very nice of them. Move it out of the way. Try not to touch any of that stuff in there like I just did. And so what we're going to do is this. We're going to take the processor out of this little protection package here. Now, here's the hard part. The processor goes in there in a specific way. Now, let me see if I can see it here. Now, when you look at the processor, you'll see on the corner, there's one solid triangle, and then there's 3 dots on each side. And then to top it off, you will have like a little notch here and a little notch here. It's very difficult to see on film, but there'll be 2 notches on one side and a triangle on the other side. So when you look inside here, there's usually a marking. You see the triangle right here on the corner of the board? That's where you want to put this triangle. That's why they put it there. Some boards do not have this, guys. You just got to pay attention to the little knocks here, and you got to put it in the right spot. But what we're going to do is just going to turn this around. Do not touch this side of the processor at all. Do not touch it. Okay? And if you clean it, then you have to clean it with a lint-free alcohol-based solution and let it dry. You can't have anything on this. Not fingerprints, not fuzz, whatever else. Triangle to triangle. Just drop it right inside there. And, well, boom. Now, it does move around, but let me show you guys something anyway. It's kind of stupid. I'm not going to do this real difficult or hard. You can't really put it in there wrong anyway, because there's you see those little knocks? They won't let you, because these little knocks right here, it won't let you put it in wrong anyway. But just so you don't try and jam it in there and force it in there and then end up breaking these little tiny pins, because these are pins inside of here, that touch these little circular, surfaces. They make it so, it's difficult to get inside there without putting it in the right spot. So boom, you put that in there like that, put this back over, make sure this slides underneath the bolt. It's going to be a little bit of pressure to put it down there, no problem. This goes underneath there, boom, your processor is locked in place. So the processor is now installed. So here, what we're going to do, now, although this has some heat transfer paste on it already, I don't think that's sufficient. And so what I did was I took a little phone repair tool, because I repair phones also. I took a little phone repair tool and I cut it into little strips. And so what we're going to do with this is, just take some of this paste. Just put a little dab over here, because sometimes it can after it sits inside the thing, it can, you know, don't, if you're too cheap to like, you know, actually like lose that much there, it sucks to be you. Put some paste on there. Group. That's actually quite a lot. Oops. But anyway, it's no problem. We can fix this. And then what I do is I take this as a spreading tool. Some people put an X on there. You'll see there's entire YouTube videos about application of heat transfer paste. Me, I just do this method. I spread it on there nice and even. You know, and you don't want to put too much on here, because what'll happen is when you press this fan down on top of there, it'll spread this stuff all down into the processor. It might get into your sockets. Dude, you don't want to have too much of this stuff on here. This is way too much that I just put on here, because it flows a lot smoother than the stuff I usually use. And so I just pressed it like a dork, like really hard. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take all, look at that. That's enough for like 3 processors, man. We're going to take all this and we're just going to wipe it off. I'm going to wipe off a crap ton of this stuff here. You just put it on here so it's a nice thin even layer, because it needs to transfer the heat. You can't have like too much of this stuff on there. You can have too little, but you can also have too much. So I just want to get a nice even layer to where it's like, see, I got like those spots showing through. I'm gonna fix that. I'll put a little bit more back on there. But this is really too much, to be honest. But whatever. This is not going to get hot. That's why it's too much anyway also. This is also another reason why it's too hot. And then when you take the processor out, you know, it's really hard to clean the processor when you got too much of this stuff on here. So, you know, just try not to put as much on here as I did. That was just an absolute mistake from, you know, like I said, using the good stuff that's, you know, a little bit thicker and harder to squeeze out of the tube than this bad stuff. So now, you can put this on here just willy-nilly. But what I like to do is, we have the fan power supply. So this is, you know, this is where you connect on the board to where your fan's going to be powered. So now we see here, this is the 4-pin where the fan is going to be connected. So just put the fan on there so that it's easy to connect, you know. And you can't really connect it wrong. So let me see if it's going to be long enough. If I put it on there, it's not going to be long enough, so I'm going to turn it again. And so now I can just disconnect it and plug it in directly. And what I'll do is I'll just plug it in right now, just to make sure. These pins, they're really like wonky, so just, you know, be careful pushing it in there. Don't go all nuts on it, you know, like you're lifting weights at the gym. And just line up these holes in the board. Let me just take this off again, and then you can see also how the paste connected on there. It's going to spread out more evenly, but you see these little holes in the board? Each one of those holes has a hole for one of the pins on the bottom of the fan. And yeah, you just put this in here, line up the holes. Like, you know, this is how little computer babies are made, by putting stuff in the holes. Don't get your wires pinched all up like I just did there. And so now, once you push this in here, this is some of the pressure you put down in there. Now, if you look on side on this, maybe you can't see it. There's little arrows on here, and these arrows are turns to lock the fan in place. You don't really need to lock it in place. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to spin so fast and take off like a helicopter. I don't know why they do it, but what it does do is it does help. See, this one was already locked. It does help put downward pressure onto the between the heatsink and the fan. So just lock these all in place. That one I just opened. Oh, come on, baby. They're like being difficult. See how that one just loosened up? So just turn it back the other way, because that could be the open also. Sometimes I get confused with these things. They like just like being goofy and mess with you. Yeah, that's what it was. I'm putting the lock in the open position and the open in the lock position. So, but even if you just leave it, just push it in there like this, really, you know, that thing's not going anywhere. So, you know, don't worry about it. Do a little bit of wire management. Don't have your wires flying all over the place. Put them here because this is a little bit excess. You know, you don't want, you're going to have a lot of wires flying around this thing eventually, and so you don't want them like all over the place. So, now that that's done, and when you have like a more aftermarket fan, it will be much larger than this, and so it'll be a little bit harder to get your memory inside there. So what I'm going to do next is the memory. And I'm just going to get the package open. Like I said, this is a single stick of 8 GB. Yeesh. It's really pretty. I generally buy LED everything. Like my fan is LED, but you know, LED memory is a bit overkill also. So now here, when you want to put your memory in, like I said, this is DDR. This is 8 GB DDR. You see there's a little notch inside of here. So you got your pin connectors or whatever these things are called, and you got a little notch here. Make sure these notches are lined up when you put the memory inside here. And if you look inside of here, look inside this little pin thing here, there's a little like notch right there. This notch in the memory needs to go in the notch there, so you need to make sure that the memory is facing the right direction to make it fit, because if you try and force it, you can, of course, break it. You know, electronics and force don't go together. So let me just angle this here, my lovely assistant. You see how the two little notches line up just perfectly? Now, just all you have to do is just press down and then watch the little levers. Remember I was talking about pressure? So I'm putting pressure on the board, and these things will lock automatically. So when you put downward pressure on it, it automatically locks it closed. So again, same thing, you can lift up the board with it. So now we have installed our memory, our processor, and the cooler. So here, what we're going to do next is we're going to be able to power the board. We need to power the board, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here. This is our 24-pin connector. The 24-pin connector is going to hook into the power supply, which is going to, of course, power the motherboard. Or it's going to control the power supply, excuse me. What powers the motherboard is this right here. So we have a 4+4 connector. And if we look here, there is a 8-pin connector. Some motherboards have 4 pins. Some motherboards have 6 pins. Some, well, actually, no, they're either 4 or 8 pins. Well, let me stop talking crap. So basically, we have a 4+4. If you have a 4+2, then it makes it 6-pin. Or it could be a 4-pin and a 2-pin. And, you know, so different cables come in different formats. This is not a problem that they're separated like this, because these cables, they're designed to be, you know, shoved together like this. Boom. And our 2 4-pins become a single 8-pin, which we can now plug into the board. There'll be a little notch on this little thing right here. There'll be a notch. Just feel for it. That notch is to link into these clips. See how these things got like a little clip in here? That little notch goes inside of here. So don't put it on like this. You want to turn this around and put it on like this, and it'll be like a, sometimes you hear it, sometimes you don't. There'll be a small little click when you put downward pressure on it, and then you know it's locked in place. Let's see if we can hear it. Yeah, there it goes. So it's locked in place. Same thing applies to the 24-pin. So now, it's pretty easy. It's self-explanatory, as you can see. You have your 8-pin, which powers the board, and you have your 24-pin. This is, of course, going to go into the motherboard. It's not going to go into the PSU, you know, because if you plug this in, then the PSU is going to understand what to do, but then it won't understand what to do because the motherboard won't have any power. So, you know, although you could probably hook, you know, that into here, it doesn't make sense. This thing needs to power the motherboard. So again, same thing here. We've got this little like clip thing here. If you look here, there's a great big long lip clip thing on here. That's the side we want to hook it on. The 24-pin takes a little bit more pressure to put in and take out. These things are difficult to get in and to get it out. So you just press it. And this is why I'm doing this on bubble wrap, because you got to put a lot of pressure on this thing. There it goes. You heard that little snap, that little tiny click. Boom. There. So now, basically, we can turn this on. And despite there being no memory, not memory, when I say memory, I mean a hard drive, what it will do is on a screen, it'll take us to the BIOS. And so you can, like, you know, start programming your BIOS. Everything should work. Really, this motherboard should power up. So let's go ahead and what we're going to do is we're going to mount the motherboard to this case. And then we're going to boot it up and see if it spins. If everything spins, then we know everything is working fine in BASIC. And that from there on out, you know, hard drive, all that type of stuff, installing Windows is our next step. And actually, we don't even really need to mount it to the case. We can actually boot it up right here. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Give me one. Well, actually, let's do this first. So now the same thing. We have the 24-pin connector here, the other end. And we're going to put this inside of the 24 pin connector on the breakout board of the server PSU. I am no longer using ATX power supplies. I'm only going to use server power supplies. So again, I'm going to look for the little notch. The notch is on this side, so I know that this cable goes on here like this. And I'm going to hook this up like this, so I know, like, when I hook my motherboard up to the frame, how my cables have to be, how I have to mount the board. So I'm gonna put, even though I built this has got like a little support on it, it's really tough, I'm still gonna support the board underneath here. These things are very sensitive. Don't put a lot of pressure on it. It's literally like just floats in the air. As you can see, this thing wiggles around. You do not want to break this off here. That's the end of your power supply. You can send it into service and get it fixed, but you might as well just buy a new one. These things go for 19 euros. The breakout board is like 60. Do not break this thing, okay? $60 ain't a lot of money. It's just a waste of money, you know? So, and we're in this to make money and support the network in that order. So don't go around just doing dumb stuff. You know, support the board underneath. These are very high quality. You can get these from parallelminer.com. They are the only people to make these breakout boards, but support it and then give it a good press down. There, I felt the click already. So we got the little click. It's in there nice and tight. All right, so let me get a power cable for this. We'll plug it up and we'll see if everything boots up. All right, so as you can see, we've got this thing, some power plugged into it. You can see we got a little LEDs here showing us everything. Top one is showing that, you know, power's running to the board, DC 12 volt, and then the last light, which is not lit up, is PC. And so this is not a good idea, guys, but I'm gonna do it anyway, just to show you. This thing should start spinning, and that'll tell you. If it shuts off immediately, that means something's wrong and we need to troubleshoot the board. If it stays on and the fan keeps spinning, that means basically the BIOS is loading, and we can shut everything down and then just mount it to the frame. So let's go and see what happens. Oops, there we go. Ah, you know what it is? So watch, guys. Here is a problem. The board isn't turning on, even though there's power on the board. This light will be blue if it turns on. There's no power going to the board. You have to turn the board on. Now this board has no power switch. Here you see a bunch of tiny pins. The top row, the first two, are the power button. I've ordered a power button, but what you can do is just take a piece of metal like this and bridge the first two, and it'll be the power button. There you go. So you see, fan is spinning, blue light is on, and the same thing applies in reverse. You can take a little piece of metal, bridge the two, and it'll turn off. Boom. So we know it works. Let's turn this off. We'll unplug it, and we will attach the motherboard to the frame. All right, let's do this. Okay, I'm back. I just wanted to, you know, bring up this point in particular. This board has obviously, as I showed you, we turned it on. It's been under load, and you know, these things have a residual charge to it. What I don't want to do is I don't want to fry any of my electronics or the peripherals. So what I'm going to do now is I put on a static charge bracelet. I just take this, attach it to the metal frame somewhere. You can find a spot. Oh yay. Like a German I'm speaking now. Oh yay. That's how much time I spend around Germans. Just hook it on there. Boom, there it goes. So now I've just attached it to the frame. Just make sure it's got a good grip on there, which it does. And so now what it'll do is it will basically just redirect any sort of static charge that I pick up into the frame and not into the board. And so you don't fry your electronics. You know, it's important in case, you know, like I said, you picked up a static charge and, you know, you begin to fry your peripherals. So this thing basically has some pins here. The black ones, they're used in conjunction with the white ones somehow. I got to figure this out. To attach the motherboard here to the side of this vertical frame. So I'm going to pull this little piece off here in a minute, and I'm going to attach it, and then we'll be right back, guys, because now my wife's gone. She's not filming for it anymore, so you're just going to have to wait for me to do it on my own. Okay, so as you can see, everything's mounted on the cage here, and the system is running. This is vertical. I've got, see, remember what I said about getting that stuff on you? Just somehow I managed to get it on me. Anyway, Everything's running relatively fine, but the problem is there's no display. As we can see, it's plugged in. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this off, and then up here you see right there where it says, well, you can't really see it, but it says JCMOS. That's to reset the BIOS. So what we want to do is we want to reset the BIOS to its basic, initial settings. It might also have to do with the battery, because remember I told you guys that actually stores the memory for the BIOS of the motherboard and everything. It might be causing a problem. I don't know. But what we want to do now is we want to reset the BIOS to factory settings so that the display adapters are coming over the VGA, cable to the screen. Because it could be that whoever owned this before, because it is used board, they had the display adapters going over the PCIe ports to the graphics cards. That could be the case. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to hit this jumper up here, turn this thing off. Boom. Then we're going to turn off the power up top at the power supply. And so now what you want to do is you want to hold on to this right here. Just bridge these two right here and just hold it down for a minute. Just stay there. A lot of times guys will tell you they'll do this for like 10 seconds, then take the battery out and do it again. We're just going to try it like this at first and see if this works. If this doesn't work, then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to plug in a graphics card into the PCIe slot here and then run a VGA cable to the display and see if we can get display like that. But right now I don't have a graphics card. This is one of the parts that are missing, so this might have to wait for another episode. So what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm just bridging this jumper right here to try and reset the BIOS to factory settings and see if that gives us a display or not. So this is more than enough time right here. What I'm going to do is turn the power back on the PSU. Then I'm going to bridge this jumper up here. Get the power back on. There it goes. It's back on. Let's see if we get a display here. This will turn blue if we get a display. It should turn blue already. We're not getting a display. And I don't have a graphics card, so what we're gonna have to do, guys, we're gonna have to wait for the rest of this stuff to arrive. Wait, something's wrong. The BIOS is reset because the system just rebooted because the fan just turned off. It was like spinning and then it turned off again. So now it's running full. Let's see if that did it. Nope. So it could be the case that the display adapter down here is not working. The port, it's the reset didn't work, or who knows. So, and this doesn't have like an HDMI port on it. This is a really old board, so it doesn't have an HDMI slot on it. No, it doesn't. So we're not going to be able to get any display over HDMI. So in order to get a display over HDMI, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get a PCIe riser, plug that in here, and then plug that into a GPU, and then run the graphics over the GPU. So guys, don't get discouraged when stuff like this happens. This is pretty common actually, and that's why I know what to do. I've had this problem with every single motherboard, including the last BioStar that I had. And so basically, don't try and use any of the other PCIe slots. Use the yellow one here, PCIe slot number 1, and you can see it right here. It's numbered also. PCIe slot, 1. Then we got 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5. But in total it's 6 because it'll be 1 and 1. But this is the primary. Run your graphics display over the primary. Don't try and plug it into any of these other ones. It's probably why it's yellow. You can plug the GPU actually into here directly, but we're going to use a riser for that. Alright, well that's it for this video right now. We have an actual working PC. Kinda. We have a working PC without a display and without a power button. I've ordered a power button, so we're going to get that installed on here. So I don't have to use this as a jumper anymore. And we're lacking display, but this is not a bad thing. Yeah, guys. Alright. Alpha Nerd. We'll catch you guys later. I'm out.